The cavalry isn't coming. It's a hard thing to admit, and it's an important conversation for us to have. I'm glad you're joining this webinar so we can talk about what's working, what's not working, and how we can make a difference in local economic development, because we need to help more places thrive now. We need to help your place thrive now. And there are some very different steps we need to take to do that than we've done ever before. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of those things that we can do differently. What are those 3 secrets to boost your economy now and make it a thriving place? But first, welcome. Welcome to the Recast City webinar. I'm so glad you could join me here today, because today we're going to have that conversation, that tough conversation with solutions. Who is this webinar for? It's for local government officials, real estate developers, leaders in the nonprofit world, and small business owners, but people who want to make a difference in their community now, and people who have the decision-making power to act and implement all of these recommendations, some of these recommendations, as soon as they can. But I have to start with the bad news, and it's a tough place to start. We have 80% of all counties in the United States are seeing a decline in working age adult population. That means outmigration, or that means an aging population in the vast majority of our counties. We also have a state right now in the country where income inequality is the highest it's ever been since we started tracking it. Just pause on that for a second. Income inequality is the highest it's ever been since we started tracking it. We also know, and this is from tons of research out there, that vacant buildings on a block reduce the value of nearby properties by 20% or more. So we have aging population, fewer adults in most counties working. We have greater income inequality, and we have that emptying out that continues to create this vicious cycle of reducing property values, reducing investment, and reducing how we use our communities. We need a different model, and this is what we're going to talk about today. We need to build a strong, inclusive Main Street and downtown and work to get your community back. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Ilana Purse. I'm the CEO of Recast City. I come from a long line of people who make stuff and who talks about stuff. My dress on the left of your screen is this amazing electric blue dress that my mother sewed for me for one of my formals in high school. And on the right, you fast forward many, many years, is when I had a wonderful opportunity to give a TEDx talk about the economic power of great places. I've worked in smart growth, I've worked in community development all over the country, and I bring all of this expertise together in Recast City. My work is really focused on how do we work directly in a community, and how do we help business owners in a community, specifically those who make a product, which I call small-scale manufacturing. We'll get to that more later. How do we help them really be a thriving part of the business community and a thriving part of the Main Street or downtown? And it doesn't matter if it's the big city center downtown or a neighborhood Main Street or rural village center. It's all about how do we bring that center back to life, and how do we give it energy, and how do we help directly in our community. So this is where I sit. I sit at the table with business owners, with elected officials, with community leaders, figuring out how we make a difference. And this is what I've learned while we've been sitting at tables with people. Places are stuck in a default model. And when we talk about a default model, we're talking about a default economic model. We're really looking at economic development models left over from the 80s and oftentimes older than that. We're looking at places where people and the place are being left behind because people think that tech and tech businesses are king and there's nothing else left out there. We're also looking at a default model where once a real estate model works, we keep building the same thing no matter what the price is and no matter what impact it has. And we're creating a lot of places that aren't honestly holding value and aren't coming back the way we think that they were going to come back. So what we're going to talk about today is how to ditch the default model, how to invest in a better way, and then 5 steps to a strong economy in a thriving place. Oh yeah, and the 3 secrets. We'll get to the 3 secrets, I promise. So first, let's talk about economic development models from the 80s. Yes, hair bands were all the rage. I miss them greatly. But we really do have an economic development strategy problem. And it is based on this. We still have most economic development authorities, economic development entities chasing big business. People see that they have to recruit big business is king, and that's the only thing that's going to save a local economy that's struggling. What this means is that communities are trading away our future. They're spending money on recruitment, and they're not necessarily getting a benefit for the community overall, and certainly not for everybody in the community. And many of these incentives, in fact, the ones that are being given out, are for high-income jobs only. They're not looking at middle-income jobs. They're not looking at how are we helping more people in the community address that income inequality that we talked about up front. It's really a benefit for a small group of people within the community. The second thing we are witnessing or experiencing is that people and places are being left behind because we're looking only to tech as our savior. And what it means is that we have a hollowing out of a lot of places in the country that are not part of the big tech explosion. We have the vast majority of venture capital going to Silicon Valley still, as opposed to much of the rest of the country, or a few cities that are getting most of it. And then we also have the world of opportunity zones, which are interesting because it is an opportunity to invest in our community, but they're not really helping distressed communities. Their money is really just going to places that we're going to get invested in anyway, so that people get not only the upside of the real estate development, but also the upside of the opportunity zone. So they're only really benefiting places in motion. And then, as we were talking about this gap, we have this enormous racial wealth gap happening in our country. It's interesting that the research is showing that it's not just about historic factors of inequity, which are really important, but it's also because of the current incomes, the current unequal incomes across different races. And that's something we need to address in the here and now if we're going to really look at economic development for everybody in our community. And then the third factor of our default model is about real estate models, and that we seem to keep building the same thing. And the reality is that it doesn't matter if it's suburban sprawl or even what I call vanilla mixed use, is that if a place looks like everywhere else, it will not hold real estate value, as opposed to a place that is unique unto that place, right? If it has the same coffee shop, if it has the same juice bar, the same gym, you don't know where you are in the country. There's nothing unique about it. And on top of that, over the last many years, like 40 years, we spread retail like really expensive peanut butter. First it was in malls, and now we have the emptying out of most of the malls in the country. And then we spread it in mixed use. When we moved into building mixed use, which has retail on the ground floor or apartments or office space above it, at the beginning we said we want this ground floor retail everywhere. And what it meant is that we have so much retail on the ground floor in places that people don't really necessarily cluster, so that we still have this overabundance of retail in a lot of places, which means that much of it is decaying at this point. And then on top of that, in many communities, the approval process keeps getting longer. In places that have a hot market, where there is a lot of real estate development interest going on, there's a very labor-intensive, very long approval process that's very unpredictable, where it's not just about getting community engagement, which is essential in the real estate process, but there are ways for really extending that in approval process in a way that people just increases the cost of the development over time. So it becomes time equal and money become a part of it. So there's a piece to focus on in all of this though, right? Investment and growth can do good. We want investment in our communities. We want to be able to grow our local businesses. This is a really essential part of it, but we need to do it with purpose and intention. And that's what we're going to talk about in all of this, right? When we look at economic development with purpose and intention, we start looking at it in a different way. We look at investing in the people who live there. We invest in the place with those people. We create a structure to support and scale and invest in it. And then we also think long-term, but we find a way to act now. And this is our new path forward. And this is what we're going to focus on here. So these are the 3 secrets. I promised them up front, you're going to get them already. So the 3 secrets to the new economic reality is that place is key to economic strength. We have to focus on investing in places, not just in a general peanut butter spreading kind of way. We also know that unique is key to economic longevity. The places that are really investing in what is unique about them have that economic longevity because there is no other place like it. And then we also know from lots of research that social connections are key to economic resilience, and we'll talk about each of these. Oh, right, and small-scale manufacturing businesses help us get to all of these. You knew it was coming, so here's a sneak peek on it. Small-scale manufacturing businesses, you may not be as familiar with them as I am because I love learning about them everywhere I go. They are these hidden gems in our communities, and they are really the missing piece for our solution. These small-scale manufacturers, these are businesses that create any kind of tangible good that we can package or replicate. Shorthand is hardware, hot sauce, or handbags. It doesn't matter what material. It could be food, it could be consumer-facing, it could be supply chain piece, but it's product businesses. They give us a reason to gather. And we know that a place to gather and a way to gather is essential. The Soul of the Community study that was done a few years ago found that people stayed in small and mid-sized cities in the Midwest and in the South for 3 main reasons. 1, there were places to gather. 2, the place was inclusive. They felt like they belonged. And 3, there was some aesthetic beauty to the place, the natural environment, the buildings. So we know that reasons to gather are essential for really building up the tie to our community and the pride in our community. So small-scale manufacturers become an essential part of this, especially the consumer-facing ones, like you can see here in this picture. Additionally, small-scale manufacturing businesses support us in building inclusive business communities. This is a business that is accessible regardless of your background, your education. If you are entrepreneurial and you know how to make a thing or you learn how to make a thing, you can become a product business, right? We have the ability to sell something tomorrow online so that you can bring revenue in from outside your community. It's not dependent on the incomes of the people living right around you. So it gives us this opportunity to build an inclusive community of business owners. Additionally, it fills storefronts. Small-scale manufacturing businesses are phenomenal at filling storefronts where we have a lot of vacancies because they can do their production and sales in the same place. This is an amazing business owner I met. She creates these soaps that smell phenomenal. To the left of the picture, she has this huge cauldron where she stirs up the magic of the soaps and then she pours it into molds. So when she doesn't have people in her store, she can be doing her production, which reduces her costs on staffing, it reduces her costs on space, and it fills a storefront in an area that needed storefronts to be filled. Additionally, small-scale manufacturers help us increase property value. They can increase foot traffic, they can create more of a presence on the street. This is Zeke's Coffee in Washington, D.C. It's a coffee shop up front, a coffee roaster in the back, and the wholesale goes out the back door, which means that they can be in a storefront, but their revenue model is going to be based not only on the storefront, but also based on the wholesale that they're doing out of that location as well. And these businesses also allow us to attract more business owners. When we take care of our entrepreneurs, when we take care of our business owners, word gets out. And so when we have programs that do really bring these business owners together and provide them with business development support as product businesses, which is going to be different than a tech support program for tech businesses, they do share the word. They share the news, and it attracts other entrepreneurs and business owners to our community. So let's get a little bit specific. Who are they? Who are these businesses? There are different kinds of businesses and different kinds of spaces in small-scale manufacturing. First, there's a makerspace. A makerspace is more of a community public good. They mostly are run as nonprofits or they're part of a public entity like a library. They provide access to tools for a membership fee and they provide classes. Their focus is predominantly on education. Anybody can learn how to make something. They're an essential part of an ecosystem. But they also have space for small businesses that might want to do small batch production, depending on the size of the maker spaces. Makerspaces can be as small as 3,000 square feet or as big as 35,000 square feet. So it really is dependent on where they are in that model. We also have shared kitchens or shared wood shops, shared workspace in a specific vertical for one type of business. A shared commercial kitchen, we're seeing a lot of these pop up around the country because food product businesses are very popular right now. And people are getting really savvy at how to grow this kind of business. So shared commercial kitchen means that they have the health stamp of approval. A small business can come in and rent the space for a few hours a week. Some of these places provide business support as well. It means that the business doesn't have the high cost up front of building out a space. Same thing if it's a shared wood shop or a shared textile space. It's only for small businesses though, it's not open to the public, and it's all about helping these businesses get off the ground and scale, but still with a low upfront investment. Then we have businesses in their own space, so artisan businesses or maker businesses. This is Katie Stack, she owns Stitch and Rivet. She started as a solo entrepreneur and now is up to 4 or 5 employees. She creates handbags and leather goods out of her shop. She works in 700 square feet where she can do production and retail out of that storefront, like we talked about before. This is a very small business. In most cases, people describe this as a micro enterprise. But think about if all of the one-person businesses in your community all of a sudden had the ability to hire 5 people, that's a lot of jobs in your community. So this is an essential part of our world of small business owners for us to look at. And then we have businesses that are prototyping or scaling to small batch production. It could be in technology like drones, it could be in artisan or supply chain production, but these are businesses that need a little bit more space. They might be making more noise and not necessarily perfect for a storefront, but more on the edge of our community versus right in the center of downtown. And then there's production at scale, and these aren't necessarily small scale manufacturers anymore. This is Rheingeist Brewing in Cincinnati. It's 120,000 square feet. It's not so small anymore. But it's important to think about these spaces because these businesses see themselves as places to gather. They know that bringing people together is essential for the work that they're doing. The day that I visit Rheingeist, it was a wiffle ball day. It wasn't a ping pong day. But you get to understand what it means to have these kinds of spaces in your community. So what does this mean for your local economy, right? It all comes down to local economic development. Let me tell you about one community that I worked in this past year. This is Columbia, Missouri. Columbia, Missouri has a community improvement district. You might be familiar with a business improvement district. It's a sister kind of program to that. A community improvement district called the Loop. And the Loop is on this corridor. Lots of parking area, lots of setback buildings, pretty high-speed traffic. And the CID said, we want to develop this area. We want to be able to have a place where the neighborhood can come out to this area and feel like they belong. There are places for us to gather here. We have businesses, and we fill in a lot of this space. They said they wanted it to be more or less the downtown for the locals because the Columbia downtown is actually for the college students at Mizzou. So lots of energy about where people can come together. And we were brought into the conversation because they said, we think that there are a lot of product businesses around here. We think maybe they have something to do with our future, but we don't really know. But we know we want to create this great place along this corridor. So we had fascinating sets of conversations. We talked to small scale manufacturing business owners. We talked to people at this great public meeting that had, I think, 170 people show up on a weeknight. We had meetings with property owners. We had meetings with elected officials. And this is all part of the Recast City method of how we work with folks. And it's essential because we get on the ground information about what's really going on. We make no assumptions about what's in that community, what are its assets, and what really are the challenges that business owners in particular are facing in small scale manufacturing, but also the wins around development. What are people thinking? What do people want to see in that area? And when we interview the small scale manufacturing business owners, these folks have a growing silk screening business. One of the things we look at is, are they interested in being part of a community of business owners? How do we really help them be connected because most of the time, small business owners in general, but small scale manufacturing business owners in particular, feel very isolated. They just put their head down and run their business. It's generally all they're doing with their time. And so how do we help them really make that connection to the place, to the programming, and to other business owners? And we had this great opportunity to work with the executive director of the Business Loop, Carrie, she really had the opportunity to capture what we did. And we had an exciting opportunity to change the perception of how people look at that loop, at the corridor, but also really making them connect with people that they never spoke to before, people that they never really thought about speaking to before, particularly the small scale manufacturing business owners, but also making sure that it's a diversity of individuals from all different backgrounds, race, ethnic, immigrant, identification, so that they could create a place that truly represents the community of Columbia, Missouri. And so what we did is we provided them with these really specific next steps that are all actions that they can take in the next 3 to 6 months, so much so that they flew really fast to make it happen. One of the recommendations that we made was that there is a high demand for a commercial shared kitchen. We helped them identify a space and convince them not to buy it, but to lease it to get there faster. And the project is happening. It's going to open any day now. But it's really exciting to me to be able to work with people to identify all these pieces, because the project that we did with Columbia, Missouri is called the Recast Boost. And it's really focused on these basic pieces. They're basic, they're not easy, but they're basic, right? This core outcomes of we get more people downtown or to a corridor or Main Street, bringing more and diverse businesses back to that place, creating more jobs with more of the local entrepreneurs, and getting the property owners, the political leaders, the anchor institutions bought in. Because we have to not only create the way forward, but we have to make sure that we have all the people in place to do this. And one of the parts for me that's really exciting is that I use my knowledge from smart growth and city planning and community development on all of this. So one of the things that we looked at was, how do we change the zoning code? One of the things we looked at were, what were the real estate development models that could be built fastest for this area to bring small scale manufacturing into the corridor quickly? Because ultimately, we want to create a place that stands out because it is uniquely yours, right? That is the outcome we want to achieve. Something that is uniquely yours, that represents who your community is and what it is about. So, are you ready to make something happen? Because that's really the exciting part. What we do is work with communities to bring Main Street back to life. And that's really what it comes down to. We work with folks to grow local businesses with living wage jobs. We want to create a loved and thriving community. And we do it in partnership with you. So I hope out of all of this, you are done with the default model and that you are ready to invest in your Main Street or downtown to create a valued place and really figure out what is unique about your community and want to showcase it. But also be willing to connect with new people and new business owners and break out of the office or break out of the space that you've been in the past. If you think that any of this is a fit for what you want to do, please reach out. I'd be happy to talk with you and just see if it is a fit. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to create places where people can come together. We want to create places that people love and feel like they're included. We want to create places where people are proud of their job and proud of what they're creating as a part of your community. And we want to create jobs where people feel like they have a stake in the community. And we need leadership. It really does come down to leadership. All of you in the local government, in public and private sector, can be the local leaders that we need to make this happen. So we want to work with you to make great places that people are proud to call home. Remember, if you have any questions or you might think this is a fit for your work or where you want to go with your community, you can reach out. My email address is ilana@recastcity.com. You can check us out at recastcity.com online, and we will help you get there. I hope that I helped walk you through what this default model has been doing to our communities and to the people in our communities, and how we do something different going forward. And I hope to talk to you soon about what is possible in your community.